Let's take a look at this word problem here. We're told 2 trains will travel 600 miles from Denver to Kansas City. Train 1 departs at 7 a.m. and arrives at 7 p.m. Train 2 departs at 1 p.m. and arrives at 6 p.m. And we're asked 4 things. How far apart are the trains at 3 p.m., at 4 p.m., and at 5 p.m.? And when will the train 2 pass train 1? So, first we're going to find out how far apart they were at each of these 3 times, and then we're going to find an equation that'll tell us when they pass. So, the first step in figuring out how far apart the trains are is to calculate how fast each train is traveling. So, train 1 departs at 7 a.m., arrives at 7 p.m., which is 12 hours, and it travels 600 miles, so we just need to divide the distance traveled by the time it takes that train to travel that distance. So, for train 1, we know that it travels 600 miles in 12 hours, or it travels at 50 miles per hour. So that is train 1's speed. Train 2, meanwhile, travels those same 600 miles, but it does it in 6 p.m. minus 1 p.m. is 5 hours, so it travels that same distance in 5 hours. So its speed is going to be 120 miles per hour. So these are the 2 speeds of the 2 trains. Now to calculate how far apart they are at different times, we're going to calculate how long they've each been traveling and multiply that by their speeds. So, train 1 at 3 p.m. has been traveling for 8 hours. So, train 1's position at 3 p.m. is going to be 8 hours times 50 miles per hour, or 400 miles to the east of Denver. So train 1 has traveled 400 miles. Train 2 has only been traveling for 2 hours because train 2 left at 1 p.m. So train 2 has been traveling for 2 hours at 120 miles per hour. So train 2 has gone 240 miles. Now we need to figure out the difference between these two, so we'll subtract 240 from 400. So these trains are 160 miles apart at 3 p.m. So we'll go ahead and write that over here. $160 miles apart at 3 p.m. Now at 4 p.m., train 1 has been traveling for 9 hours, and train 2 has been traveling for 3 hours. So let's calculate their positions at 4 p.m. So we've got 9 hours times 50 miles per hour, and that is 450 miles. And then 3 hours at 120 miles per hour. And that is 360 miles. So we'll subtract these 2 numbers to find the distance between them. So 450 minus 360 gives us 90 miles. So at 4 p.m., these 2 trains are going to be 90 miles apart. And so now we just need to calculate 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., train 1 has been traveling for 10 hours, and train 2 has been traveling for 4 hours. So we have 10 hours times 50 miles per hour is 500 miles. And 4 hours times 120 miles per hour is 480 miles. So now these two trains are getting closer. 500 minus 480 is just 20 miles apart. So at 5 p.m., they're only 20 miles apart. All right, so we've answered now 3 of the 4 questions in this problem. Now what we need to do is find an equation that will tell us when train 2 will pass train 1. So to do that, we need to describe the position of the 2 trains and then set them equal to one another. So we know train 1 is 50 miles an hour, train 2 is 120 miles an hour. Train 1 leaves 6 hours before train 2. So in the time from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., train 1 travels 6 times 50 or 300 miles. So train 1 is 300 miles ahead of train 2 when train 2 starts. So to write our equation for the position of train 1, we're going to start our time t at 1 p.m. So at 1 p.m., train 1's position can be described as 300, because it starts out at 300, plus 50 miles an hour times t. And t is going to be our time from 1 p.m. on. Train 2, meanwhile, starts out at 0, because we're starting our time when train 2 starts, so it starts at 0. And train 2 is traveling at 120 miles an hour, so train 2's position is going to be described by 120 times t. Now, to find out when these two are in the same position, all we have to do is set these 2 expressions equal to one another. So we'll write 300 plus 50t equals 120t. So to solve this, all we're going to do is we're going to subtract 50t from both sides. That'll eliminate this 50t, and that'll give us 70t on this side. So we can say that 300 equals 70t, or t equals 300 divided by 70, which is the same as 4 and 2/7. Now 2/7 is about 17 minutes, 2/7 of an hour. So this is about 4 hours and 17 minutes. Now remember, we said that time t starts at 1 p.m. So to find the time when train 2 passes train 1, we need to add this much time to 1 p.m. So the time when train 2 and train 1 are in the same spot is going to be 5:17 p.m.